All right, hi guys. First, I just want to apologize and say I'm very sorry I couldn't make it in person. I would have loved to be there and give this presentation to you guys. But I am studying abroad in Spain right now, and I think that's just a little bit too long of a flight to justify. But I've tried to put together this presentation and make it interesting, and I still hope you find value in it in this altered format. And so. I've been working on a project for the Canyon and what I like to call digital infrastructure. Before I get too into the presentation, I just want to take a moment and formally introduce myself. So, my name is Parker Jones. I'm a current Cal Poly student. I'm a second year student and I'm a software engineering major. So, actually, architecture is not my formal education. I think I know a lot more about it now, but starting this project, it was definitely a little rough. And then I'm originally from Seattle, and so I'm an out-of-state student. I didn't know a lot about Cal Poly or SLO until I started looking into colleges more seriously. And just to ground you in my presentation today, I've created an app and a website. These are both available for free. The app is available on the Google Play Store on your Androids or Apple App Store on your iPhones. And that's going to serve a more navigational purpose, a little bit distilled down. It's meant to really augment the experience in person. And then the website is a more informational historical tool that's available at polycanyon.com. But at the end, I'll have the link for you guys. So just hold off on checking them out. I just wanted to make sure we all were on the same page and you had a little visual to really just ground before I get too into the presentation. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, I'm a second year, I'm a software engineering major. Doesn't seem like a natural connection to the Canyon. What started this? And this is a question I have to ask myself a lot when I give these presentations and just kind of throughout this process. It really did just grow into something a lot greater than I originally imagined. But I think it's best if I really dive into what started this out in the canyon. So let me head out there and tell you guys.
So I was introduced to the canyon during my orientation week. Our group leader took us up here, and this was at night to stargaze. And I think that's a pretty common thing that's done during orientation. And we came out here, and I just remember kind of holding a flashlight, looking at all the structures, and just being like wowed that these things exist. They're real. They're in front of me. But also just like I'd never heard about this place, and that was pretty surprising that like I would hear about it for the first time, like being there. And so I guess that just sort of sparked a love for me, and I kept coming back. I'm someone who likes to get outside. I like to explore. That's kind of how I take a break from my studies. And so I just felt myself coming back here, gravitating back here to just explore more. And in winter quarter last year, I was pursuing a photography habit, and I thought, I really want to get a picture of every single structure. And I was like, oh, I don't really know how I would do that. But I know that there's a map out there, and so maybe I could go out there and look at the map and see all the different structures. So let's go take a look at the map. So I came out here to look at this map, and for those not familiar with the canyon, it looks like a decent map. I think it was a good effort, but I was pretty familiar with the area at the time, and you can just sort of tell this is not to scale at all for the area. These paths don't really line up. Some structures, they're marked as like no longer here, but it's not clear if like every structure that's gone is marked as gone or if new ones have been added, and the names don't really line up for what people call them nowadays. And so I just knew that there was a sort of navigational problem, and that original photography challenge to me was expanded, and I just thought, maybe a better challenge would be to create a new map. And so I took my drone, I flew at 500 meters up in the air, took a sort of satellite image. I traced out the exact paths that people actually walked on and sort of marked where the structures were. And at the end, I had this really good map. But I sort of thought to myself, like, that was cool, and I could probably send this off to someone, and, it might get replaced, and they might be able to print it or something like that. But I didn't like that sort of lack of agency. I'm probably not the best person to make a map. I've never made anything physical or in the real world like that. And so, but I knew I was looking for a project at the time, and I had software experience, and I knew an app is just something that is, it's free, it's easy to download, and you can just get an experience into people's hands really, really quickly. And so that's when kind of the gears started turning, and I realized, oh, this can be more than just a map. It could be an app, and then I can really augment the experience that people already have here and the explorative nature of the canyon. And so I think at this point, the best thing to do is kind of just walk around the canyon and show you what the app's like and show how it really does improve the experience for people visiting and exploring. All right, as you can see, I'm out in the canyon. I've got the app here. And you can just see like it just shows your live location. We can see the nearby structures, and then the standout feature is really augmenting the experience. So if I actually just walk up to this structure here, it's gonna pop up and say, oh, you just visited the structure, and I could click to learn more. I'm not gonna do that right now because we'll take a look at the information later, but it really is something that's automatic. It just helps you get around, and then when you visit a structure, it's gonna let you know. And so that way it's just super seamless for the user, intuitive, and just really improves upon the way people were already exploring and using and navigating in the canyon. So after I was done addressing and sort of solving what I was calling the navigational problem, the lack of a map, and I think you guys saw the app does a pretty good job of, letting people get around better and know where they are and just see the structures that are nearby and just learn more about them. But it became clear to me pretty quickly that there was more problems than just navigational ones. So if we look at this structure here, this is actually a suspension bridge that I would think most people do not know about. It's south of the canyon. It predates the canyon. And so it became clear to me when I looked around that found all these accessory other structures that there was things that people were just missing entirely. And there was really an informational need and a historical need as well. And so that's when in my mind, I was like, okay, the project's got to expand. You got to address this. And I remember like having my parents come out and test an early version of the app, and my dad would like walk up to every structure and be like, okay, like nice, it was called this and it was built in this year, but I want to learn more. I want to hear the story. And so that's when I really set out to try to tell the story of every single structure.
Okay, so I wanted to set out and tell that story, and I looked for current information, but it was lacking. And so if I go over here to the CAD website, which is currently still in its form, of just looking at a structure that's on here and has information about it. And I would say that this structure actually has the median amount of information about it. So some structures aren't even listed on here. Some have a lot of information if they were more recent or something happened or is well documented. But a lot of them have about this much information. So we can say we have a name, we have a picture that's even a little bit outdated. It doesn't exactly look like that today. It was built sometime in the 1970s or 80s, so a year range. And actually, about half of the description is talked about something that was removed and the nearby structure. And it's not clear who built this, or there's just a lot of missing information or why they built it or how it was used. And so I can just clearly tell that this, we get a little bit of insight, but we're not understanding the full story of this structure. And so I started to research. I knew that, that there was, like my dad was saying, it just wasn't very complete without those stories. And I don't think I was improving the experience in the way I wanted to without them. And so the first thing I did was I connected with on-campus resources, connected with the Kennedy Library, and got in touch with some librarians and archivists who were able to give me access to the original microfiche for the senior theses. And I had to learn what that was, but I was able to look through those and get a lot more information and really make sure that the information I had was accurate. And through that connection, I actually was able to join a fourth year architecture studio. So I like to say that I was an honorary member of this studio. I would go every Wednesday on their work day, and I would kind of just share what I had learned and a lot of my field research and help them. And by the end of their quarter, this was 20 students in a studio working to really, really research with all different specialties. They had a 400-page book of all the information in the canyon. They talked to a lot of caretakers, people who built it, faculty who worked on projects and advised. And yeah, at the end, they had so much information that I sort of had the opposite problem. Like, okay, I don't think what I want is to just, put this 400-page book on a website. As valuable as it is, I don't think that solves the information problem either, because that's still inaccessible for most people. And so I really worked to distill that down, and I created that website documenting the research, distilling it down, and designing it in an intuitive way with there were little bits and pieces that got the information, but just displayed it naturally, broke it down, and really told the story and the history of the canyon. And so I think that was that synergy between them doing a lot of the research and doing it very rigorously and in the correct way, and then I was able to make it more mass marketable and understandable for people, what was really important. And so then if we just go back here and we can compare to what it looks like on the website I created, here we have multiple pictures. So we have a main image that's up to date. We have a historical photo that actually shows it when it had the hood on. We have a full sort of description that tells a story. We got the year, built in 1976. It's up here. An advisor that worked on the project who built it. You click here and see exactly where it is on Google Maps. And if I click here, I can see a lot more information and how it actually evolved over time. And for certain structures that had multiple phases of development and student groups working on them, this description is going to be many paragraphs long and tell that story, which is super, super important. So if I get back over to the presentation. And yeah, so then I wanted to stay true to the app. The app was super important, super accessible. But I knew that like kind of the full story, multiple paragraphs, essay longs for each structure didn't exactly serve the purpose of the app. I didn't want to create something where people were out in the canyon and down on their phones or reading. And I don't think people really wanted that either. I think they wanted to just look at a structure, know a couple of details about it, and really just understand, okay, why was this built and why is it significant? And so utilizing things like fun fact is super nice, because it just tells people really quickly if that's all they want to know, and then just a distilled down description and just throwing the year in there more naturally. And then the historical photos I think are super, super cool when you're just there and you're kind of looking up at the structure, and then you're seeing like, oh, like this is how it was lowered down with the crane. It really clicks and start to understand that. And something about this project was there was always an appetite for more. I would sort of think to myself like, oh, I could do this, and then I would also think like, oh, I should not do that because there goes, 20 hours of my life. But no, it was always super fun to expand it, and it's still expanding to this day. But on the right here, this GIF is showing off virtual tour mode. So if you guys actually download the app today, it's going to recognize that you're not near slow. You're probably not going to visit today. So it's better to get you in a mode where you can take a virtual tour of the canyon. And the virtual tour allows you to just see a picture, see where you are on the map, see the fun fact, and then you can learn more, and open that full screen view with all the details if you want. And like I said, I'm from Seattle. I wanted to share this out, and I think there's an appetite for the canyon beyond just SLO and Cal Poly. I think it's sort of gotten some online fame in recent years with travel influencers and bloggers and just social media. And so I think sort of capturing that attention and allowing people to have an experience while not there, or maybe having an experience before they get to go in person, is super beneficial. And so what's the point, right? So I've done all this work. I'm working to improve things, to piece things together when I get information about the history and promote the tools and get this out there. But you know, what is it all really for, right? And I think it would be best to head back to the canyon to really discuss that and put the picture in everyone's head right away. So I'm gonna head back out there and continue talking about it.
Something I failed to mention earlier was that when I was introduced to this place during my orientation week, I was actually introduced to it as the Architecture Graveyard. This is the name that I would say 99% of Cal Poly students know. Actually, I think if you walked up to any Cal Poly student and said, oh, have you heard of Poly Canyon? They would say, I don't know what you're talking about. You said Architecture Graveyard, they'd be like, oh yeah, that place is awesome. But obviously, that's a cultural problem that needs to be addressed because we don't want to sustain a graveyard. Graveyards are dead, they're not taken care of, maybe they are respected in a sense, but I don't think this is screaming respected to the, countless hours of work that people put into it. And so I think what really is the next phase of this project, like I have these tools, they're great, I think they're working for people are like using them, they're liking learning more about the area, but we really have to go to the root cause of the issue and address, why is it in this state and why was it left with no information and in disrepair. And I think a big part of that is when the caretakers moved out. And so a big part of tonight and this event and just kind of raising awareness is, funding that caretaker program is going to be huge because just having people in the canyon with a responsibility over it and just having students see that like, oh, this is a place, there is someone living here, this is a live, going, well thing is super, super important. And so I'm going to do my part. I'm going to promote these tools. I'm going to try to stop the bleeding, which is work with orientation and get the app, integrated into that. And so we can maybe correct the history and the name and have students coming in and know about the history ahead of time and learn that this is a place that needs to be treated with respect. but we've got to come at it from a lot of different angles, and a big one is, you know, getting that funding for caretakers and getting them back here. And I think there is a lot of hope for the Canyon, because, you know, 99% of people I see out here are treating it with respect. I've actually never seen anyone treat it with disrespect, and I think people, once they understand it, they really do have a love for this place. And I think the momentum is shifting, and people are realizing, oh, we did take a step back in not, you know, keeping this place up and utilizing it educationally and culturally. And we need to correct that record and set the record straight and get it going again. And I think we really do have a chance to do that. So a quote I've come up with to sort of signify this whole journey that I think myself, my projects in the Canyon is really on, is we must remember what has been to dream about what can be. Because I think a lot of students just don't know what has been here, and they don't know the history and the pushing of experimental architecture that went on here. And I think once they do get that, and they see the pictures and they read about the history and the video of people really living lavishly out here, then they understand, and they kind of get that image in their head, like, oh, well, this could happen again. You know, I could contribute to this. We could do this again. And I think that's really the mindset and the mentality we need to have, is like, we can and we need to do this again. And part of that is, you know, getting caretakers back. But like I said earlier, it comes from a lot of different angles. I'm going to do my part. But I am hopeful that that's going to happen, and I really do believe it's going to happen, and the pieces are really falling into place, and I'm excited that the Canyon's best days are ahead of it. And yeah, that's my presentation. I hope you guys liked it. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm abroad right now, probably having a lot of fun, I hope. I'm gonna leave a QR code for you guys to check out the website. On the website you can check out the app, and then Kevin's gonna be able to answer any questions about the more logistical side of supporting the Canyon, which I hope you guys do. And yeah, thank you.